The coffee was still hot when it spilled. It ran slowly from the rim of the white cup, down her hair, soaking her scalp, tracing a burning line across her forehead before dripping onto her hoodie. The smell of bitter espresso filled the open office. A few keyboards stopped clicking. Someone gasped. No one moved to help. Emma Carter stood frozen, both hands gripping the wooden handle of her mop, as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. Her eyes closed for a brief second, not to cry but to survive the moment. A drop slid from her eyelashes and fell to the floor she had just finished cleaning. Above her, Melissa Grant laughed. "Oh my God, relax," Melissa said, tilting the empty cup as if it were a joke. "It's just coffee." Beside her, Claire Whitman covered her smile with manicured fingers, pretending to whisper something, but loud enough for the room to hear. Laughter followed, soft at first, then cruelly comfortable. Emma said nothing. Her shoulders tightened, her fingers trembled around the mop. Years of swallowed words pressed against her chest, heavy and familiar. This wasn't the first time she had been reminded of where she stood, or where they thought she belonged. The office lights buzzed overhead. Glass walls reflected her small figure, stained hoodie, bowed head. To them she was invisible, disposable, just the poor cleaning lady who worked nights and stayed quiet. None of them noticed the way Emma lifted her gaze. Not the anger, not the memory that flashed behind her eyes, not the promise she made to herself in that silent second, as coffee dripped onto the spotless floor. Because if they had looked closer, they would have realized something terrifying. This wasn't the moment that broke her. It was the moment that started everything. Before we begin this emotional story, tell us in the comments from which city you are watching, and don't forget to leave your like to keep following us. Emma Carter finished cleaning the conference room long after everyone had gone home. The city lights outside the glass walls flickered like distant stars, unreachable. Her hoodie was still damp from the coffee, the fabric stiff where it had dried. She hadn't changed it. She didn't want to explain anything to anyone. The office was silent now. Too silent. Every step of her worn sneakers echoed louder than it should have. She pushed the cleaning cart slowly, aligning chairs, wiping fingerprints from a table that already looked perfect. That had always been her job, making sure no one noticed she'd been there. At 32, Emma had learned how to disappear. She worked 2 cleaning shifts at night and stocked shelves at a grocery store on weekends. The money barely covered rent for her small apartment in Queens. Some months she chose between groceries and bus fare. The only luxury she allowed herself was a notebook, hidden in her backpack, filled with handwritten numbers, ideas, names, things she never shared. Once, years ago, she had dreamed out loud. That hadn't ended well. Her phone buzzed softly in her pocket. Emma froze. No one ever called this late unless something was wrong. She wiped her hands on her jeans and answered. "Emma Carter?" a male voice asked, calm, professional. "Yes. This is Daniel Brooks from Hawthorne & Coven Legal Services. We've been trying to reach you." Her grip tightened on the phone. Hawthorne. The name stirred something old and uncomfortable in her chest. "I think there's been a mistake," she said quickly. I clean offices." There was a pause on the line. Papers shuffled. "Ms. Carter," Daniel said, choosing his words carefully. "We're calling regarding the estate of Robert Carter." Emma's breath caught. That name hadn't been spoken out loud in over 10 years. "I don't know anything about an estate," she whispered, eyes darting to the empty office as if the walls might be listening. "We believe you do," he replied. "And according to our records, you're the only one who can legally make a decision." The silence that followed felt heavier than the humiliation earlier that night. Emma sank into a chair, her knees weak, her reflection staring back at her from the dark glass. The poor cleaning lady. That's all they saw. None of them knew what that name meant. None of them knew what had been taken from her. And none of them could imagine what would happen if the truth finally came out. Her phone buzzed again. Daniel's last words echoed in her ears. "We need to meet. As soon as possible." Emma barely slept that morning. The ceiling fan in her apartment spun in uneven circles while the city hummed outside, indifferent. Every time she closed her eyes, the name echoed again. Robert Carter, dragging memories she had buried under years of silence and survival. By noon, she was already back at work. The office looked different in daylight, brighter, colder, less forgiving. Emma moved quietly between desks, avoiding eye contact, but she could feel it, the shift. Whispers followed her, side glances, smiles that stopped too quickly. Melissa Grant leaned against a desk near the break room, coffee in hand. A new cup this time. "Well, look who's back," Melissa said, loud enough for the room to hear. "I thought you might call in sick after last night." Claire Whitman stood beside her, arms crossed, eyes scanning Emma's stained sneakers. "Some people don't have the luxury," she added softly, pretending it wasn't meant to cut. Emma kept her head down. She replaced trash liners, wiped a counter, counted her breaths. 1, 2, 3. "Careful," Melissa continued, stepping closer. "We wouldn't want another accident." Laughter rippled through the nearby desks. Familiar, predictable, but something inside Emma had shifted. Not anger, not yet. Clarity. She finished her round faster than usual and slipped into the supply closet, closing the door behind her. The smell of cleaning chemicals filled the narrow space. Her phone vibrated again. A text from an unknown number. "Daniel Brooks, tomorrow. 10 a.m., Midtown Manhattan. This is important." Her hands trembled, not from fear but from the weight of choice. She pulled the notebook from her backpack, the one no one had ever seen, pages filled with calculations, sketches, ideas she'd started years ago and never let die. On the first page, a name was written, crossed out, then written again. Carter Innovations, a dream that had once been promised to her, a dream that had been stolen. Footsteps passed outside the closet, voices faded. Emma closed the notebook and pressed it against her chest. Tomorrow meant answers. Tomorrow meant facing a past she had never been allowed to claim. And tomorrow, whether she was ready or not, the world that saw her as invisible might finally be forced to look straight at her. She stepped back into the hallway, mop in hand, eyes forward. For the first time in years, Emma Carter was no longer just cleaning up other people's messes. She was preparing to confront her own. Midtown Manhattan felt like another world. Emma stepped out of the subway and stood still for a moment, dwarfed by glass towers and people who walked like time belonged to them. She smoothed her thrift store coat, took a breath, and followed the address Daniel had sent. Hawthorne & Co. occupied the top floor of a sleek building. The lobby smelled of polished stone and expensive cologne. Emma caught her reflection in the mirrored walls, tired eyes, pulled back hair, hands rough from work. She almost turned around. Almost. Daniel Brooks greeted her with a firm handshake and a look that held neither pity nor surprise. "Thank you for coming, Ms. Carter." In the conference room, sunlight spilled across a long table. At its center lay a thin folder. Her name was printed on the tab. Daniel opened it slowly. Robert Carter passed away 3 months ago. Emma's chest tightened. She nodded, as if she had already known. In a way, she had always been waiting for this moment. "He was the founder of Carter Innovations," Daniel continued, "a private tech firm valued at several $100 million. The words didn't land all at once. They echoed. "I was 19 when he left," Emma said quietly. "He told me I wasn't ready, that I was emotional, that business wasn't for people like me." Daniel's eyes didn't leave her face. "He also changed his will that same year." Emma's fingers curled into her palm. "He removed your name," Daniel said, "and gave controlling interest to his board." Silence filled the room, heavy, final. Emma stood abruptly. "Then why am I here?" Daniel slid a single document across the table. "Because 2 weeks before he died, he changed it again." Her breath caught. "He reinstated you," Daniel said, "as the majority shareholder, effective immediately." The room seemed to tilt. "But there's a complication," he added. Of course there was. "The board is contesting the will," Daniel said. "They're claiming undue influence. If this goes public, they will do everything possible to discredit you." Emma thought of Melissa's laughter, Claire's whisper, the way people looked through her. "I clean offices," Emma said softly. "They'll destroy me." Daniel leaned forward. "Unless you decide not to stay invisible anymore." Emma stared at the document. Her name, her father's signature, a past that had erased her, and a future that now demanded courage. Her phone vibrated. A message from work. "Melissa Grant, we need to talk. HR, now." Emma closed the folder. For the first time, fear wasn't about losing everything. It was about what would happen if she finally claimed it. The HR office was smaller than Emma expected. Too clean, too quiet. Melissa Grant sat across from her, legs crossed, phone resting casually on the table, as if this were a meeting she was enjoying. Claire Whitman leaned against the wall, arms folded, lips pressed into something that almost looked like concern. Almost. The HR manager cleared her throat. "Emma, there have been complaints." Emma nodded slowly. "About my work?" Melissa smiled. "About your behavior." That word hung in the air. "Several employees reported feeling uncomfortable," the manager continued. "There was an incident involving coffee, and afterward, your attitude was described as hostile." Emma's fingers tightened in her lap. Hostile? For standing still? For staying silent? "I didn't say anything," Emma replied calmly. "You didn't have to," Claire said softly. "Your looks were enough." Melissa sighed dramatically. "We're just worried, that's all. This is a professional environment." Professional? The manager slid a paper across the desk. "We're placing you on unpaid leave while we review the situation." Unpaid. The word landed harder than any insult. Emma stood, her legs steady despite the storm in her chest. Understood. She didn't look at them as she left. Outside, the city felt louder than before. Emma walked without direction, phone buzzing non-stop in her coat pocket. Messages from her landlord, from the grocery store manager asking if she could still make her weekend shift. From Daniel Brooks. The board filed an injunction this morning. They're moving fast. Emma sat on a bench near the river, the wind cutting through her coat. Everything was unraveling at once. No job, no income. A future dangling in courtrooms and signatures she barely understood. For a moment she considered walking away. Let them have it, let them win. She pulled out her notebook instead. The pages fluttered in the wind, stopping on a sketch she'd drawn years ago, an early concept for a software platform her father had once dismissed as naive. Her handwriting filled the margins. Improvements, solutions, vision. Her phone rang. Daniel again. "They're offering a settlement," he said without preamble. "A small payout if you sign away your claim." "How small?" Emma asked. "Life-changing for most people," he admitted, "but nowhere near what's rightfully yours." Emma stared at the water, grey and restless. Across the river, glass buildings reflected the sky. Inside them, people like Melissa made decisions without consequence. Emma closed the notebook. "No," she said quietly. There was a pause on the line. Then Daniel spoke, slower now. "If you refuse, this gets ugly." Emma stood, shoulders squared, eyes steady. "Then let it," she replied. She hung up and walked back into the cold. For the first time, Emma Carter wasn't choosing safety. She was choosing herself. And somewhere downtown, people who believed she was powerless had just made their biggest mistake. The board underestimated silence. They filled court filings with polished language and confident assumptions, painting Emma as unstable, unqualified, a nobody who had wandered into something far bigger than she could handle. They expected her to react emotionally, to stumble, to fold. Instead, Emma disappeared. For 2 weeks, no one at the office saw her. No angry emails, no social media posts, no interviews. Just quiet. But inside a small co-working space in Brooklyn, the lights stayed on late. Emma sat across from Daniel Brooks and a woman named Laura Chen, a forensic accountant with sharp eyes and very little patience for arrogance. Papers covered the table, old contracts, internal emails, board meeting minutes that were never meant to leave locked folders. "They moved money," Laura said, tapping a page. "Not illegal on the surface, but sloppy." Emma leaned closer. She recognized the names, the signatures, Melissa Grant's husband, Claire Whitman's brother-in-law. Connections suddenly formed a pattern. "They assumed you wouldn't know what to look for," Daniel said, "or that you wouldn't last long enough to find it." Emma thought of the notebook. Of years spent observing, listening, cleaning rooms where powerful people spoke freely. Never imagining the woman emptying their trash was memorizing every word. "They fired me on unpaid leave," Emma said quietly. "They thought it would break me." Laura smiled for the first time. "It usually does." Across the city, Cracks were already showing. Melissa was called into an emergency meeting when a compliance audit was announced without warning. Claire's confident posture faltered when legal asked about a conflict of interest she'd never disclosed. Whispers replaced laughter. The same desks, the same glass walls, different energy. Emma watched it unfold from a distance, hands wrapped around a paper cup of coffee, this one untouched. Daniel slid a final document toward her. Once this is filed, there's no going back. You'll be public, visible. Emma hesitated only a second. I've been invisible my whole life, she said. That never protected me, she signed. That afternoon, an internal memo circulated through the company. Carter Innovations acknowledges Emma Carter as its majority shareholder. Further statements to follow. Phones rang, voices rose, panic crept in where certainty once lived. And in the middle of the chaos, Melissa Grant stared at her screen, pale and shaking, realizing too late that the poor cleaning lady she had humiliated knew exactly how their world worked, and now she was stepping into it. The press conference lasted less than 15 minutes. That was all it took. Emma stood at the podium without theatrics, dressed simply, her hair pulled back the same way it had always been. Cameras flashed, reporters leaned forward, the company logo glowed behind her. I'm not here to tell a story, she said calmly. I'm here to confirm the truth. Documents appeared on the screen beside her. Numbers, names, transfers, connections that could no longer be denied. Across the city, Melissa Grant watched from her office as her phone buzzed non-stop. Messages from legal, from HR, from people who suddenly didn't want their names associated with hers. Claire Whitman's confident smile vanished when her access card failed at the elevator gate. Security avoided her eyes. By the end of the day, resignations were announced. Investigations opened. Silence replaced arrogance. Emma returned to the building that evening, not as a cleaner, but as the majority owner. She walked the same halls, past the same glass walls. No one laughed now. Melissa stood near the break room, clutching her purse, eyes fixed on the floor. She looked up once, just long enough to recognize Emma. No apology came. None was asked for. Emma paused, then spoke quietly. You should be careful with coffee. She kept walking, not because she needed revenge, but because the truth had already done something far more powerful. It had put everyone exactly where they belonged. Months later, the building felt different. Not quieter, just honest. A framed photograph now hung near the entrance of Carter Innovations. It showed a small community center in Queens, freshly renovated, its name engraved on a modest plaque. Emma Carter Foundation. Beneath it, a simple line. Opportunities for those who were never given one. Emma stood there alone for a moment, coat folded over her arm. She was a millionaire now, on paper, undeniably. But what had changed her most wasn't the money. It was the freedom to choose what mattered. She still wore simple clothes, still took the subway sometimes, but when she walked through the halls, people looked at her differently. Not with fear, with respect. Melissa Grant had taken a job at a smaller firm across town. Claire Whitman left the industry entirely. Their names faded quickly, as arrogance often does when it's no longer protected by power. Emma never spoke about them again. On her office desk sat an old notebook worn at the edges. She hadn't thrown it away. It reminded her where she started and why she would never forget. Late one evening, as she prepared to leave, a janitor passed by, head down, moving quietly. Emma stopped. Hey, she said gently. Take tomorrow off. Paid. The woman looked up, startled, then smiled. And in that moment, Emma understood. The real victory wasn't becoming a millionaire. It was making sure no one else would ever have to feel invisible again. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this heart-touching story. Tell us in the comments which moment touched you the most. Subscribe and turn on the bell to receive more stories that inspire and transform. Leave a like if you believe in the invisible strength of kindness, dignity, and family. And thank you for being part of this community that believes in stories with soul.